how do you structure your muscle groups? Is there this big secret to it? Do we place too much emphasis on what muscles we're working out when? Well, that's what I'm talking about in today's episode. So strap in and get ready for episode 151. Let's go.
I've always been that skinny guy.
Why can't I gain muscle mass?
What do I do in the gym?
They said I'd always be skinny.
This is your complete source for how to gain lean muscle and break out of your skinny body. From nutrition to getting the most out of your workouts and everything in between. We know just how frustrating gaining muscle mass can be, but don't worry, we've got you covered. You're listening to the Bones to Bulk podcast. Hey, welcome to today's episode. My name is Brian Parody, and I'm so glad you are tuning in. If this is your first time listening, welcome. So happy to have you here. And for my return listeners, thank you so much for coming back. I know that you have so much variety out there in the podcasting world, and so it means the world to me that you choose to take the time out to listen to this. So I definitely appreciate it. Before we dive in, if you have not already joined our text community, please text the word podcast to 706-222-7551. I send out a few texts a week. Basically, just it keeps me in the loop with y'all. You can write me questions at that number, and it's just a great way for me to stay connected to you. So again, text the word podcast to 706-222-7551. All right, let's dive in. So when it comes to structuring our muscle groups and figuring out how to work out muscles together, you kind of have to understand human anatomy a little bit because, we have push muscles, which are our chest and our tricep and our shoulder muscles, and we have our pull muscles, which are our bicep and our back muscles. And so those muscles, you have to understand, work together so much. There's so many exercises that I'll do videos on different social media platforms or on YouTube, and I'll get people comment and say, I thought this worked this, I thought this worked that. And while yes, each exercise has one primary muscle that it is working out. However, that doesn't mean that other muscles aren't involved in the exercise because we're one body. Our body works in unison together. And so oftentimes even when we're targeting a certain muscle group, it's natural that we're going to hit more than one thing at a time. I don't know if you've ever looked at the machines when you go in the gym and they have the little drawing of the person and all the muscles that the machine hits are all highlighted in blue or red. And usually on a lot of those, you see that it hits a lot of muscles, right? That's because your body is working together. It's not just, one thing. Now, that's not to say we can't isolate certain muscles. We absolutely can. But I just want to kind of clarify that you're usually going to be working out several muscle groups, even on the bench press. You're working your triceps a little bit. You're working your shoulders a little bit. And so oftentimes, when I'm talking to people and they say, well, I've got really weak shoulders and my bench sucks. Well, usually that goes hand in hand because your shoulders are so much involved in your bench press. And because, again, the body works all in unison together. So you got to think about things in more of a whole body perspective rather than just isolating things. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't spend time isolating muscles because we absolutely should and place them under tension so that we can really target them for growth. But when you're setting up your workout routine, it doesn't really make sense to do some push muscles like bench press and then go do some deadlifts and then go do some overhead presses and then go do some rows because you're hitting push, you're hitting pull. And while it's not bad in a sense, you're not really placing a certain muscle group under enough strain to really stress it so that it breaks down those muscle fibers and ultimately helps you to grow bigger and stronger muscles because that's the whole idea of weight training, right? We got to break everything down. And if you're going from, this muscle group to this muscle group to this muscle group and really not hitting one hard, then chances are you're not going to hit it hard enough to really do the work that needs to be done in order to grow it. So you want to primarily focus on a certain muscle group. Now, that's not to say you can't hit more than one muscle while you're in the gym. For instance, if you're doing a push-pull split, you're going to group your push exercises together, so your chest, your triceps, and your shoulders, and your pull exercises together, and your back and your biceps. Now, the way I would personally recommend this is rather than doing like on chest, tricep, and shoulder day, doing one chest, one tricep, one shoulder, do all your chest, then do all your tricep, then do all your shoulder, or it doesn't have to be in that order, but that way you're hitting one muscle group really hard. and you're putting it under a lot of strain and a lot of stress, which again is going to help you build more muscle. The more stress we can put it under, the more time under tension we can add to it, the bigger those muscles are going to grow. So I highly recommend that if you are structuring your workout that way. Same applies for back and biceps. If you want to do all your bicep exercises together, then you want to switch and do all your back exercises together. Again, just so that you're placing those muscles under the max amount of strain and stress. And then of course, legs have their own day, and we can't skip leg day, right? So when you're setting out, often we overthink like, well, if I'm doing back and biceps, how am I going to do all these exercises? You don't need a lot. You really don't, because we get so caught up in how many machines did I work? How many different exercises did I do? How many sets did I do? And while I'm not saying that stuff's not important, it's not the end all. You can go in and I don't know if you've ever heard the term run the rack, but where you do one exercise and you run the length of the dumbbell tray or stand or whatever it is, and you just go up and down. And you do as many as you can on each one. And that's all you do for that muscle group. Now, you're doing a lot of volume. So let's take, for instance, let's say you're doing a tricep kickback. And you go and you start and you with the 2.5 pounders and you do some kickbacks, and you go 5 pounds and do some kickbacks, and you do 10 pounds and do some kickbacks, and you're just working your way down the rack until you reach the end, or literally as much as you possibly can lift, and then you work your way back. It's a workout. You absolutely are putting that muscle under an incredible amount of strain, an incredible amount of tension, even though you're only doing one exercise. Now, I'm not recommending that you do this every time you go in the gym. By all means, you need to have variety in the exercises you do. But my point is, there's effective ways to work out muscle groups rather than necessarily hitting 8 or 10 or 12 exercises while you're at the gym. Like, you don't need to hit that many. Usually I aim for around 7 to 8. That's kind of my sweet spot range that I go for. I like to do chest and triceps together. I like to do back and biceps together. And then I pair usually shoulders and legs together, just because I'd be in the gym forever if I did shoulders, chest, and triceps all in one sitting. So don't overthink it. Just get in there, get in a good workout, focus on the amount of strain, the amount of time under tension that you're putting those muscles in. Don't worry about necessarily sets and reps, because man, we place so much emphasis on sets and reps sometimes that we lose the whole point of why we're doing the sets and the reps. We think, I just got to hit 10 reps. And whether 10 reps was extremely difficult or 10 reps was extremely easy, we stop after 10 reps. And what we're doing is we're leaving a lot on the table, because often we can do a lot more than 10 reps. Or often we can bump up the weight a lot so that we're barely getting 10 reps. But usually we pick a weight that we're somewhat comfortable with, that we've done before. And usually we just stop at the 10 reps and we don't crank out any extra, even if we can. And so it's a bad mindset to get into, because we're in essence just kind of going through the motions. We're going in there, we're putting in the work. And I'm not saying it's bad, don't get me wrong. If you're exercising, working out, it's always good. But you can be effectively growing muscle in much better ways than that. So I really want to encourage you to kind of switch over your mindset with how you think about your workouts, how you think about your sets, how you think about your reps. Don't put them as king. Like, they have their place. I'm not saying they don't, but really focus on how much are you straining the muscles? Are you really breaking down the muscle fibers so that they can then heal during your resting phase and come back that much stronger? Because that is what weight training is all about. It's all about breaking things down and building things back up. That's its sole goal. All right, thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, please check us out on YouTube. We have an amazing channel over there, and I post 2 videos a week. Sometimes they coincide with a podcast, exercise I'm talking about. Sometimes they are completely opposite of what the podcast is about, but I talk about nutrition, certain muscle groups, how to do exercises, my favorite dumbbell exercises, lots of good stuff on there. So head on over to youtube.com/bones2bulk. Please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And above all else, remember that no matter what walls you're facing, what obstacles you come up against, you can hit your fitness goal. You've got this.